Hello, I'm Ferg.
I'm Heather. This is the newest new old friend. No noise. Fine. Well, she's here.
We've reached day 14 and also chapter 14. What are the chances of that?
Pretty high, Ferg.
No, I'm not. I'm just excited for the episode.
Oh my God, you're a fool.
I am.
Okay. We are just over halfway now, and Artridge is still none the wiser as to just what is going on at the ballet.
Are you doing any better than him? Let us know on social media who you think done it. And also on social media, give us your answers to the hashtag #NOFQuiz.
Hashtag NOFQuiz question.
What was that, sorry? Quiz question.
Hashtag NOFQuiz question 14. Which of Santa's original reindeer has the longest name?
When you say original...
Not including Rudolph. And we're talking the now standard English spellings, please.
You've been warned. Now, back to Artridge and crimes, clues and Christmas.
Christmas.
Ding, ding. Ding, ding.
Crimes, Clues and Christmas. Chapter 14.
The rest of the interview with Barrington didn't yield much more insight, and after a while, O'Rowby got frustrated and sent him on his way. This time, though, I didn't have to go and collect the next witness for interview. She was ready and waiting for us. As soon as Barrington had exited, the door swung back open and Marlena Schweinvolger was leant against the frame, one leg bent up, protruding through the slit in her jet-black dress, and her long cigarette holder once again clamped between her blood-red lips. With her sculpted platinum blonde hair, I could well picture her as a femme fatale, but if I'm honest, I could picture her doing all manner of things, and I don't think for a second it meant they were true. She blew a smoke ring into the room, filling the air with her particular fragrance and stepping in on a pair of killer heels. But were they the heels of a killer? Her movements were so fluid, she practically poured herself into the uncomfortable wooden chair and arranged her legs artfully, one over the other.
You want to speak with me, yes?
She purred, her German accent doing strange things to the W. Thank you for joining us, Miss Schweinvolger. We want to talk about Miss Daisy Love's death, said the inspector.
A pleasure,
replied Marlena, and O'Rowby jumped upon it, leaning forward in his chair. You find it a pleasure to speak of the death of Miss Love? She was utterly unfazed by the aggression in the question, continuing to gracefully draw on her cigarette and demurely blow the scented smoke away.
What? That is not what I meant. It was, how do you say, a turn of phrase. Thank you. You thank me, and I say a pleasure. Like when I sign the autographs of my many fans. I do not take any pleasure from it, but I still say, a pleasure. If I'm using the phrase wrongly, I am sorry. You must remember, English is not my first language, Inspector.
The answer seemed to irritate O'Rowby. Or perhaps he was tired after our revels last night and keen to press on. Whatever the reason, he dispensed with any overture and launched directly into the main movement of the thing. Did you like Miss Love, Miss Schweinvolger?
I didn't know her. She was beneath me. A member of the ensemble, that is all.
Except, of course, she wasn't a member of the ensemble anymore, was she? She replaced you as prima ballerina.
She became prima, she did not replace me. The moon does not replace the sun, does it, Mr. O'Rowby? It simply takes its place while the sun is elsewhere.
She smiled disdainfully at us. She clearly didn't feel the slightest concern for anything that had happened thus far, nor fear for any repercussions that might affect her. But you weren't elsewhere, were you? You were here. Why was that? This question caused the briefest of pauses in her. She tried to cover it by stubbing out her cigarette, but it was too late. O'Rowby had spotted her discomfort too. Why were you still in London, Miss Schweinvolger?
What do you mean? Where else would I be?
I saw a chance to curry favour with the inspector and joined in the line of questioning. You're one of the most sought-after dancers in Europe, aren't you?
Naturally.
Why didn't you go and take up a position with one of the other companies? Berlin, Moscow, Paris? That's a very good question, Artridge. Thank you, sir. I was wondering the same thing myself. We're on the same wavelength now. He smiled at me, and the camaraderie from last night was in full flow. We're becoming not partners in crime, but partners in crime fighting, I offered. We're not partners, you're assisting me. Quite right. But the question remains, why are you still hanging around this theatre, Ms. Schweinvolger?
We are in the middle of the season. The other companies I would consider working for all have their own primas in place. Berlin has Margaret Spout, Moscow has Annie Meringue, and Paris has Fitzy Trammell. Besides, it's almost Christmas time and I have been performing since I was 14. I decided I'd earn some time off and wanted to be in London. It is a free country, is it not?
That's a good answer, isn't it, Artridge? It is. A good answer, no doubt. It was a good question, but that is a good answer.
Thank you.
Except that the answer doesn't really explain why the great Marlena Schweinvolger would stick around the theatre, though, does it, Artridge? No, Inspector. Now you mention it, it doesn't. Shame, that. Shame. Still, a good answer. A good answer still, but not one that answers the question that we asked. I was enjoying the patter O'Rowby and I had developed. I felt like we might break out into one of those music hall crosstalk routines at any moment. You know the sort. Two comedians come out in front of the curtains wearing shabby suits and hats that are either too small or too large, and then get into talkative confusion over a homonym. Say, did you enjoy the stew?
It was chilly.
It wasn't hot enough.
It was too hot.
Then why did you say it was chilly?
Because that's what it was.
The stew?
What stew?
The stew that was chilly.
What stew that was chilly?
You just said it was chilly.
The chili?
The stew.
How can a stew be chilly?
If it's not hot.
But stew isn't hot.
Exactly, it's chilly.
Not if it's chilly, it's hot.
If the stew's chilly, it's hot.
What?
The stew.
What stew?
The stew that was chilly.
The stew wasn't chilly. I didn't have the stew. I had the chili, and the chili was hot.
I see, you had the chili, not the stew. So, did you enjoy the chili?
No.
Why not?
It was cold.
That sort of thing. You know what I mean? Anyway, I was beginning to think that the Irish inspector and I might just launch into our own little routine, so tightly knit had our thoughts become. But Marlena clearly felt less excitement at our burgeoning partnership. Amusing the way O'Rowby insisted on the assisting thing. I doing him round. And became exasperated at our circling the point.
Oh, what is it you are trying to say with all of this? Good answer, good question, nonsense.
The policeman and I looked at each other, and he nodded at me to take the lead. There not being a vacant position at one of the other ballets and seeing London at Christmas time are both solid reasons for staying in the capital. But what was keeping you here? Here, specifically meaning this theatre. You were here to greet me when I arrived to investigate the jewels, and you were here again yesterday. Why? She bought herself some time by lighting another cigarette and slotting it into place in her holder before she answered.
I am a dancer. Dancers' careers are short. The time we get to spend in and around theatres are shorter still, so I chose to spend some free time surrounded by people who understand me and the trappings of the world I love. What of it?
Why did Michael Barrington fire you, Miss Schweinvolger? Asked O'Rowby matter-of-factly. The question was fired out like a sniper dispassionately picking off targets from a distance, and the impact was felt in a similar manner. Marlena opened her mouth to speak, but closed it again. She was quiet for some seconds before she finally spoke.
I was not fired. Not by Michael Barrington. He wouldn't dare. I was replaced. In truth, I gave him no choice. There is a difference. Patronage is very important to a ballet company. I made a joke I shouldn't have about Eldridge Rawlinge's ears, which he overheard, probably because he has such big ears. And he threatened to pull his funding unless the change was made. It was ridiculous. Everyone knew it was a little joke, and all the other girls stood by me. They wouldn't accept the role, all the girls except Daisy.
You seem angry.
Of course I'm angry. She didn't just betray me, but in a way she betrayed herself. We have to stick together, otherwise the people with power will play us off against each other.
You should talk to the barmaid in the foyer, I muttered under my breath.
I did not have anything to do with Daisy's death. I would not harm a fellow dancer. You can believe me or not, I do not care. This interview is over.
She stood up and left without another word. I made to go after her, but O'Rowby raised his hand and told me to let her go. Instead, he sent me to go and fetch Cakey from the crew room. Cakey followed me up the stairs to the interview room without a word. His huge arms hung by his sides as he walked. I was almost surprised that they stopped just below his waist rather than hanging low to his knees, such was his gorilla-like bulk, coupled with his covering of dark hair. When he sat down into the wooden chair, it creaked ominously. He'd been silent the whole journey, but as soon as he sat down, he looked O'Rowby square in the eye and spoke without hesitation. "All right then, is this the part where you put it on the ex-con?" "What? You're a convict?" I sputtered, unable to stop myself. "You didn't know?" "Mr. Artridge didn't, but I did. Mr. Lyle here spent 5 years at Her Majesty's pleasure for burglary and assaulting a police officer, Mr. Artridge." "Mr. Lyle? I thought your name was Cakey." "Tatum Lyle, like the sugar company. The charges were trumped up. I done the burglary fair enough, but that copper just fell over when he was chasing me. I never touched him." "The jury said otherwise." "Yeah, well if it's the word of someone who's just admitted to thieving or a copper, who do you think they're gonna believe? Is that the plan here then? String me up like a kipper for this?" "We just want to ask some questions, Mr. Lyle." "Oh, do me a favour and knock off the Mr. Lyle malarkey, will ya? I'm Cakey, so just call me Cakey." "As you wish, Cakey. What can you tell us about the sandbag that fell?
It was a standard 35-pound bag, secured on a hemp line.
Was the rope damaged?
I keep everything shipshape, Inspector. I check everything each week. Nothing in that rig is going anywhere without my say-so.
Oh, so it was on your say-so the bag fell onto Miss Love then?
That isn't what I said, and you know it. I've been up to have a look myself, and I've seen the rope was broken somehow. Why would I work the rope through like that when I could have just put a release on?
You tell me.
I wouldn't. I didn't.
Where were you when the bag fell?
I was in a pub with BV and Flipper.
Really? Mr. Archer says he saw you in the backstage corridor.
Yeah, I was on my way to the pub. That's the way from the crew room to stage door.
It's also the way from the crew room to the stage and to the ladders up the fly floor, isn't it?
It is, but that isn't where I was going, which is another reason I wouldn't have needed to cut the rope. I could have put the release on a timer and been anywhere I chose to be. Sorry, mate, but this time you're going to have to find someone else to blame. Any more questions?
He glared at O'Rowby, who shook his head. We will, of course, be checking your alibi, but no, that's everything for now. Thank you. Before Cakey got up, I placed a hand on the inspector's arm. Actually, Inspector, do you mind if I ask Cakey one more question? Go ahead. Do you smoke?
What?
Do you smoke cigarettes?
Yeah, why? Do you want one?
Actually, that'd be marvellous. Do you mind?
Suppose not. Here you go.
He reached into his back pocket and produced a crumpled packet of cheap extra-strength cigarettes and withdrew too. He rolled one across the desk to me and stuck the other in his mouth before leaving the little room. What was that about, Artridge? Asked O'Rowby. I tapped my nose and smiled. Just a little hunch, Inspector. Just a little hunch. Crimes, Clues and Christmas is a New York Friends production, part of the Comedy Whodunits For Your Ears podcast series, written and performed by Feargus, Dunlop and Heather Westwell, with sound and music by Fred Riding. New York Friends gratefully acknowledge the support of Arts Council England in making Comedy Whodunits For Your Ears.